everybody, it's Holly here today with a new video for Marker Pop, and today we're going to be creating this fun card using the Winter Wonderland pack from Simple Stories along with the coordinating enamel dots, the Hot Cocoa Cups Die-Namics from My Favorite Things, and the new Stitch Sentiment Stripes die set. This got 3 banners in it, and I'm also going to be using the coordinating Hug and a Mug sentiment set from My Favorite Things. So I started out with the papers from the Winter Wonderland pack, and then I looked through my stash and found some coordinating cardstocks. I know I've got Craft, Soft Sky, and Lawn Fawn's Guava cardstocks, along with a piece of Nina Solar White here that I'm using. I believe the Soft Sky is from Stamping Up, so these are just random pieces I had in my collection. So I started out by die cutting those images with my Big Shot, and I'm going to start out using some weathered wood distress ink, and you want to go down onto your scrap paper first and get off as much of the ink as you can, and then lightly come in from the edges with the mini ink blending tool. And what this is going to do is it's just going to add a little bit of dimension to the die cut pieces. You could also do this with some Copic markers if you wanted to, or you could cut these out of white cardstock and add color with watercolor or whatever you wanted to. You could even die cut them from pattern paper if you wanted to. So I'm going to work with the weathered wood here. I had a little bit of trouble because of the new, this is a new mini ink blending tool foam, and I'm just not happy with these. I get a lot of scratches and scrapes, and it's just not as smooth as the old ones used to be. So until you break it in, but the secret is just work off the paper first, get as much ink off as you can, and then slowly come in, because you can build the ink up by adding more and more ink. So I'm using the weathered wood on the Soft Sky cardstock, and then I'm going to move on to Worn Lipstick on the Lawn Fawn Guava cardstock. And then on the craft pieces, I'm using those actually as to represent the cocoa that's in the mugs, and for that I'm using Vintage Photo distress ink along with the ink blending tool to fill that in. I didn't have the right color of brown cardstock that I really wanted, so just made my own using that Vintage Photo over top of the craft cardstock, because you can add less or more ink depending on what shade of the brown that you want. And with the Guava cardstock, those little hearts, the Worn Lipstick was pretty close to the color of the cardstock, so I didn't rub the ink off too much. I kind of went directly from the ink pad right onto the paper. Same with the Vintage Photo. Kind of just rubbed it across and then built it up as I needed to. So if you're looking for a coordinating ink for the Lawn Fawn Guava cardstock, the Worn Lipstick is a perfect match for it. So once I have all those pieces done, I'm going to go ahead and work on my white pieces. I'm going to use some of my Copics. I'm going to use C00, C1, and a little bit of 0. And I'm adding a tiny little bit of a highlight to just add some dimension to it. Going down with the C00 first, then a little bit of the C1, and then I'm working backwards with the C00, and then a little bit of 0 to kind of fade it out. And this will actually fade out pretty well. You won't actually see too much of it once we get the final product. And here I noticed I had the gray on the bottom of my ink blender, and I was trying to get it off. And then for the marshmallows, I just did the same thing, tiny little bit. It's such a small little image. It's not really doing much, but it does add a little bit there to it. And as it dries, it will lighten up even more. And then I'm going to take a coffee filter, or you could use a piece of scrap paper, whatever you wanted to, or even the piece of paper there that I'm working on I could have used. I'm going to add some removable adhesive, and I'm going to attach my images to the coffee filter. And what this is going to do is it's going to help hold the images down so they don't curl up. And then I'm going to take some stickles in the Rock Candy Clear, and I'm going to add that to the white images. And I chose this because I didn't want to have any glitter on the project, where if you added stickles or some clear glitter or a zig Winkestella, I just wanted it to have some texture, but I wanted it to be plain. So That's why we're going with the clear rock candy. So add a smooth layer and then just kind of flick or bump the brush down a little bit to give it some texture. Then I just set that aside to dry while we work on the rest of the card. I'm going to use some Tombow Tombow multi-liquid glue to attach my pieces there. And I'm just using a thin strip. And I'll also use my EK Success tweezers to add those pieces all together. And I'm just laying down the cocoa part onto the inside of the cup. And these dies actually have a little bit of a embossed lines on them, so you can kind of see where to insert your pieces into it. So once I get those in, I'm going to go ahead and add the hearts. And then I'm going to also add the whipped cream and the marshmallows, but I'm going to add those later. So we're going to work with this part first. I'm going to add an acrylic block on them just to kind of hold them down for a second. And then I'm going to go ahead and start working on the card. And I'm using the Wonky stitched rectangles, using the largest rectangle for the background piece. Then I'm using the next one in for the smaller rectangle. Just ran those through the big shot, and then I'm going to go ahead and score a piece of Neenah Solar White 110-pound cardstock. I've gone and cut it along the 4 1/4 side, and I'm just top folding it, scored at 5 1/2. And then I'm going to go ahead and adhere the larger of the pattern papers with the ATG gun. And then for the next rectangle piece, I'm going to add a little piece of fun foam to it. I didn't want the card to have a super amount of height, so I just wanted to use the fun foam because it's a nice thin height. And you could even use the fun foam on the back of the cups as well if you didn't want to have all that extra height that the 3M Scotch foam gives you. And I just cut the foam down, just freehand it using my scissors to measure. Nothing fancy need to do. You could also run the fun foam through your big shot with the actual die or the next one down to leave a little bit of a border. I'm going to go ahead and add some more ATG gun to the back of that foam piece and attach that to the back of the center triangle there. And just attach that into the center of the card. And then I'm going to work on my sentiment, and I'm using the Hug in a Mug stamp set from My Favorite Things, and I'm going to stamp that onto a piece of Neenah Solar White using some Lawn Fawn's Walnut ink. I didn't want to use black because I didn't use black anywhere else on the card, and there isn't any black in the background paper, so I kind of want to keep everything kind of the same and a little bit softer when you use brown. Things look just a little bit softer. So I'm going to use the Walnut ink, and then I'm going to place that Stitch Sentiment strip die over the sentiment there. I'm just trimming it out. I like to trim it out so you don't waste so much paper. I'm going to use my Post-it tape to hold the die in place, and then I'm just going to run it through my big shot. And then I'm just going to adhere some Scotch 3M foam tape to the back of the sentiment and add that to the front of the card. And then I'm going to work with my cups and get them in position. I'm going to add some more foam tape to the back of each of those. Just lining everything up correctly. You could use your ruler for this too if you needed to. Make sure you always leave the adhesive on the back of your foam tape when you're checking things out. Sometimes I tend to pull that backing off, and then once it's down, and you can't really move it. This is actually the first time I'm using this set. I purchased it last year when it came out, and this is the first time I broke the set out and actually used it, so 2017 is going to be let's use our stamp sets we haven't used before. So I'm going to go back to the marshmallows and whipped cream. They are dry now. I'm going to go ahead and add some foam tape and a little bit of that liquid glue to the back of those as well, and position those onto the mugs. And these EK Success tweezers work really good at helping you maneuver small little pieces. Once I've got the marshmallows in place, I'm going to go ahead and add some enamel dots. Those are the Winter Wonderland and coordinating dots from Simple Stories. You can also add an acrylic block over your images here if you want to hold them down or anything. I used the dark chocolate ones on the other card I showed them, and so to do this one I'm going to use the blue ones. I kind of just went with the papers and the colors in the pattern paper there and just based my colors off of that, is what I was using. And that pretty much finishes up my card. And here you can see the other card I made as well, using the same coordinating papers and images. Hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.